United Kingdom for her statement. And now I give the floor to the representative of plurinational state of Bolivia.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much, Madam President. My delegation wishes to thank you for having convened this meeting, and also the delegation of Kuwait for having called for it to be convened. Laila Anwar Al-Gandor, 8 months old. Els Ilbin Muhammad Al-Samak, 14 years old. Misal Fahd El-Sad El-Sheikh Khalid, 15 years old. Ahmed Adel Musa Al-Shahed, 16 years old. Sahed Mohammed Abu Al-Ked, 16 years old. Ibrahim Ahmed Al-Saka, 18 years old. Iman Ali Sadiq Al-Sheikh, 19 years old. Saeed Mohammed Hassan Ahmad, 19 years old. Matasen Fasi Abu Luli, 20 years old. Anas Hamdam Salim Kader, 21 years old. These are the 10 first people on the list of those who were killed by the security forces of the occupying power yesterday in Gaza. Today we had a minute of silence to recall the victims. But I think that minute of silence, too, also recalls the inoperative nature of the Security Council, that this Security Council, not just in recent years, but in recent decades, has failed the Palestinian people. And so, as a member of the Security Council, in the presence of my brother, the Ambassador of Palestine, with us today, and through him, I wish to ask for forgiveness and say how sorry I am to the 6 million of Palestinian refugees who've lost their homes and today live in camps far from the lands that saw their birth. I am sorry that for 70 years, the promise of the creation of the State of Palestine has not been fulfilled. I'm sorry for the more than 50 years of occupation and the continued increase of Israeli settlements in occupied Palestinian territory. The international community has failed you. I'm sorry at the 10 years of inhumane blockade of Gaza and the building of a shameful wall along the West Bank. I'm sorry that there are Israeli checkpoints that they must pass through daily to go to work. The international community has failed you. I wish to ask for forgiveness from the over 97 Palestinian men and women, 12 of whom were children, who lost their lives in the last 6 weeks since the Great March of Return began. The international community, this Security Council, has failed you. I wish to ask forgiveness and say I'm sorry to the over 12,000 Palestinian men, women, older people, and children who were injured by the Israeli aggression. Over 3,500 of whom were injured in various degrees by live munition, leading to permanent disability. The international community has failed you. I wish to say I am sorry to the more than 300 girls and boys held in Israeli prisons or detention centers, some subject to military courts, others simply under administrative detention. The international community has failed you. I wish to say I'm sorry to the 169 health workers who were wounded while they provided emergency services to the Palestinians along the fence separating Israel from Gaza. They, too, have been failed by the international community. I wish to say I'm sorry because there were 18 ambulances damaged in recent weeks, hospitals and health centers in Gaza which have collapsed without enough fuel, water, and electric supplies to operate. I wish to say I'm sorry because of the 4 hours of electricity provided per day. The international community has failed them. Madam President, I believe it is necessary to clarify that although there are 2 parties to this conflict, so-called conflict. It's not really a conflict. We're talking about an illegal occupation. We are talking about an occupying power and an occupied territory. They are not on an equal footing. I was saying that Israel is the occupying power. The other, Palestine, is an occupied people. There is a historic, glaring inequality. One of the parties has used and continues to use force to occupy the territory of the other. One of the parties forcibly displaces civilians, confiscates lands, demolishes houses, and transfers settlers to illegally built settlements. One of the parties is blockading Gaza with terrible humanitarian consequences. As Mr. Mladinov appropriately said, Gaza has become a kind of prison subject to these conditions. Madam President, added to this, the unilateral decision of the government of the United States of America to transfer its embassy to the occupied city of Jerusalem does nothing but inflame spirits. Once again, Bolivia expresses its strongest condemnation for this decision, which violates resolutions of the Security Council and of the General Assembly. The United States, which supports the occupying power, has become an obstacle to peace. It is part of the problem, not part of the solution. Madam President, after the events we have witnessed, Bolivia believes that the mechanisms of the International Criminal Court should be triggered to conduct an investigation which identifies those responsible and bring them to justice for the crimes committed during the Great March of Return. Against this scenario, we express our firm commitment with all international efforts leading to a peaceful solution to this conflict. And we add our support to initiatives such as the Quartet's Roadmap, the Madrid Principles, the Arab Peace Initiative, and others, which are guarantees for fair, lasting peace so that both peoples can live within recognized secure borders. We reaffirm our conviction that the only solution over the long term is a two-state solution, which will finally consolidate a free, sovereign, independent state of Palestine with borders previous to 1967, with East Jerusalem as its capital, in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the Security Council and of the General Assembly. To conclude, Madam President, we have heard mention of Iran over and over again. We have heard Hamas, Hamas, Hamas over and over again. But we haven't heard mention of the real reason for this situation, which is the occupation, the occupation, the occupation. Once the occupation comes to an end, then we can talk about compliance with the resolutions of the Security Council and of the General Assembly. Bolivia will never, ever justify terrorism. But at the same time, we will not fall into the trap of hearing that the problem is Hamas, when the basic problem, the essential problem, is that a state recognized by this organization is illegally occupying the territory of another state. It is subjecting a people to inhumane, subhuman conditions. This is a systematic violation of the Charter of the United Nations. It is only when the occupation comes to an end that we can say that we have done our duty. Thank you, Madam.
I thank the representative of